On, we can hear you. The mic is on. Hi, Pete. We can hear you.
Yay, that's exciting, isn't it? Yay!
Hey!
The mic is on.
It is on.
So, Lauren, over to you.
Oh, well. Hey there. Thanks for watching. We're here with Neil Cole, Rowan Castle, and Peter Hobbs,
Hello.
who you probably know if you're watching his Facebook video.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about missional communities this weekend. Neil, tell me, how many times have you been here talking about missional communities?
I don't know. I think 7 or 8 times total, but with the salvos, twice with just Peter and the group, and then 3 times with, so 5.
Yeah.
5 times.
And what have you seen over those years? What kind of shift and changes have you seen within, I guess, the Salvation Army space? Because you've come here speaking to salvos.
Yeah, so the first connection I had was with Peter, and it was, he just contacted me through email and read a book or two, so we started communicating. And then I had a greenhouse in Singapore, and Peter and Diana Hobbs came to it, and I felt like the greenhouse was a bomb. I really did. Primarily because the host church was not going to make any changes. But what I didn't know is there were people from other countries there that were eating it up. The seeds were planted, and it was one of the most fruitful greenhouses I've ever done. So don't ever judge it by the reaction you think you're getting. So then Peter and Di brought me out a couple times to do greenhouses with their crew, and I was impressed with immediately how they were not just practicing the missional community approach, the persons of peace, all of that, 7 signs of John, but it was working and it was multiplying.
Was that surprising to you that your own teachings worked?
It is always surprising to me that anything I do works, because it doesn't usually. But no, it was a surprise, because I do a lot of travel and a lot of training all over Western Europe and Western nations, and it doesn't usually take off this fast. It is a slow burn, but it went fast, and I knew the gift mix was right and the context was right. So I was just pleased with that. I thought that was fantastic. That's more than I could ask for. And then Rowan was asking me out to meet with more salvos, and they were talking about the potential of the people in the room, and I was nodding and smiling and believing them and that they're sincere and real, and we'll see what happens. So I did training, and next thing I know, another network is like taking off and multiplying and several generations deep. And so I'm beginning to realize that God has chosen the Salvation Army in Australia to change things for Australia. That's what my belief is. Because, he chooses the foolish things of the world.
So true.
But I do believe it.
Enjoy your time here while you can.
I will not be coming back.
Yeah.
5 times is enough. No, I do think that God has chosen the Salvation Army to set a tone for others. And I think it's actually common for him to choose to use a people that have been around and not noticed for a while. It's not that you're not noticed, but this kind of movement, this kind of multiplication and life change and discipleship is not normative for what Australia has seen of the Salvation Army, or even any church in Australia. I mean, you have the success that Australia points to is Hillsong, and that's all addition. What the Salvos are doing is multiplication, and you are an example already across all the world, because I tell your story wherever I go. I show pictures of the numbers of people and the generations that are multiplying, and say this is a Western context. This is not China. This is happening in Australia, and it's encouraging for people wherever I go. And so I have really been blessed by coming.
Rowan, what's your viewpoint on what's happening, given that you are kind of like the big boss here in the Salvos and missional communities?
I am the boss of no one or anyone. What's my view? I think, look, very early on, we were given this very strange role, which was to explore how it is that the Salvation Army could have expressions of faith community that would make sense to probably a broader age range. Was really the concern, was that, you know, we're strong in youth and children's, and we're strong in older demographics, and there's a bit of a lull, and has been a consistent decline for 50 years in sort of that middle space. So I think that was some of the motivation that pushed us, that pushed the creation of this role. And I think for us, we came into it wanting to find something that was really usable. We really were trying to find a model or an ideology of doing faith community that you could clearly see the mindset, the skill set, and the toolkit required, and that those things would be simple. What we saw was lots and lots of books that couldn't address those three simple things, and if they did, they addressed it with such complexity that it was useless. And there's a fourth element that I'm very passionate about, and that is that as well as knowing, and as well as having mindset, a skill set, and a toolkit, you need a community of practice. And you need to be able to go see, touch, taste, smell the ideology, the model, the mission. And a friend of mine used to always remind me that mission is not an idea; it's a context. It's a place you can go and you can be there. And what we discovered with the organic church ideology was that we identified straight away this is one of the few things that we've grabbed that really ticked all the boxes. We see the beliefs. We see the activities, we see the resources that help you achieve those activities, and it's all really simple, it's all user-friendly, and we have a context that we can visit. We have practitioners and find practitioners in Pete and Di, and I think that's all just probably a silly way to say, look, we just saw a crossover between, there was a bit of a crossover between this thing called Organic Church, the Salvation Army, and Australia. And there was kind of, I think for us, a sense of there's a bit of a sweet spot here, that for some reason this thing works in this country with this denomination. So I think we just wanted to get into that sweet spot and, enjoy it for what it is.
It is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
It is a really big sweet spot. It's a privilege to be part of, really.
So, Pete, how are you and Di going with all the, I guess, not fame, but being held up as this, this model that works, and
You're a model.
how does that impact on you, and how is the community actually going?
Well, fame is not the right word. I think it's
Infamy is the
Infamy.
Yeah. It's more a case of we were just doing something that we felt God was calling us to do, and initially many people didn't quite capture the vision that we had, and it wasn't a popular way of going, and we were told that it wasn't going to work, and actually it's nice now to be down the track and actually be able to go, wow, like what God told us to do was true. But actually it was Neil that has been, and a few other people that have been have walked down the path before us, like 15 years ahead of us. So they've been great mentors through their teaching, through their books and different things like that, where we've been able to learn from their past and some of the things that they taught us early on about, some of the basic things like within the first 3 years you'll probably want to quit, because the numbers, that you'll have associated with what we do is so tiny. So when we get to 3 years and we're like seeing just a small group, I'm like, it's all good. It's meant to be like this. So it was just so wonderful to have like that. That's just one example. Another example was choosing who to invest in, the type of people we should build relationships with and who not to invest in, and that was quite a radical concept for us, because, being in the Salvation Army, we were like, we're going for everyone.
Yeah.
We were taught to go for everyone, whereas in this, we were taught to go for people of peace, as Luke 10 says, to go for people of peace. So that was a different ideology, which was really helpful as well to be able to go, all right. So we did go for everyone, but we invested heavily in the people of peace. So so having a mentor or a spiritual director who's down that path was just so helpful. And now to see the fruit of what God has called us to do has been amazing, because God has done it. Like, we've been obedient and gone down the path, but it's God who's done it. It's God who's transforming lives, and it's only because of that transformation that the movement is going through people. So it's all glory to Him. And I said to Neil last night, like, and all glory to God for you for being obedient as well and doing what you're doing, because even on the way home today, like, he's written a lot of books, and those books have all come out in perfect timing for me, actually. So I said, thank you. If you've only written the books for me, it's like wonderful. So that's been.
Sales indicate that that's about right.
but no, it was like it's really it was not so much about the book. It was just about making us think differently about the text that we've read all along, like the New Testament. Like, to just helped us look at it in a different paradigm, a different way, and that was what was helpful about it. And the Jewishness of Jesus as well was another good thing that got us on this path, looking at Jesus from a Jewish point of view and interpreting texts with that in mind, but which was a big difference. And actually, one of those big things was looking at the Great Commission from the Jewish point of view, of the Messianic Jewish point of view, of the Great Commission being about going into all the world and immersing people in the reality of the Trinity. That, for me, that verse blew my mind, because one of the things I wrestled with in training college was, why don't we do baptism? And I'm like, I'm happy to do baptism if that's, but I knew that we didn't do that in the salvation, so I was questioning. And then when I found that text, I'm like, this makes sense. But yeah, so many. It's just been great to have people that have been journeying with us along the road, and now to see these lives changing, and to see community forming, and then to see other people within the Salvation Army around the world also getting this call of, well, not necessarily a call, but they're also feeling led to explore life this way, has been truly exciting.
Do you think, Rowan, in the context of the new National Vision Statement, transforming Australia one life at a time with the love of Jesus, actually fits with this model? It really does just fit really well with that one life, one person. It starts small and then it multiplies.
This is a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
I think it absolutely does, and I think that it absolutely does. And actually, if you look through the wider material around the vision and mission, it's actually really clear about the idea of partnering with God, like responding to what it is that God's doing in the world. So I think that especially if you look at the wider material, that vision statement, that here's an imagined image of the end game. I think it's very compatible, especially when you look at that wider material that makes it clear that actually God's working in the world. We're responding to what He's done. We're here to pick the fruit of what He already planted. So I think it's absolutely compatible. And I think the challenge for us is to not look at it as, well, here's our mandate to go and save the world. Like we're amazing. We're here to fix everybody, and we're better than you, and here we come. I think it's a beautiful image of how you would describe our activity. And like I said, if you look at the other material, it makes it really clear that we're here to respond to what God's already doing in the world. So yeah, I think it's good.
You're mentoring people now? Like Neil's mentored you and you're now mentoring others?
It's just basically journeying with people, actually, and just as they share their stories, we can just speak into our experience based on what we've learned. So there's some people who, like, they don't really need mentoring. They're just really great people anyway. But when we just journey with them, I think it encourages them, because it's a lonely road when you're leading in a space that no one's been in before. some people that are struggling with different areas, and like that whole 3-year thing. Some people have been trying it for only a few years, and they're like, "Oh, it's no good." I'm like, "Well, you just need to keep persisting, keep praying, keep going." And it's not just it's not a formula thing, it's a God thing. So if we look at the life of Jesus, and the life of Jesus shows us the best way how we should live and operate. So
And if people are interested in trying this new way or this different way, Rowan, are you the person they should contact?
They can contact me, but there's absolutely no rules. God's going to do what God's going to do, and Pete and Dyer are great to contact. We can help you out. We can Monty and Mira, absolutely fantastic.
Monty and Mira, one of them was meant to be here, but I think they've got caught up. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no rules.
Neil's available on Facebook. Contact him.
Absolutely. And I'll point you to Rowan.
And I'll say, read this book by Neil.
Lauren, did you want to talk about your story just before we finish?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Let's ask Lauren.
Let's ask your story.
What brings you here to this retreat?
I was not invited. I have to state that very clearly that I was not invited here.
Well, there was a reason.
I invited
Take a
myself because that's what I do. Pete has been pestering me for many years to do what he thinks that I'd be good at and start organic church. And I said no, but if anybody knows Peter Hobbs, I will know that he's very dogmatic. He doesn't really let go. So, and also God did a lot of stuff. I finally realised that I am not disempowered, that I can actually speak to people about Jesus and have like those faith conversations and learn about Jesus together, and that is church, and work out a way that together that we can do that. And I had a number of friends who I've been journeying with for some time want to explore faith in Jesus, but didn't want to go to church. And I think that is the case for many, many people now. We have such full lives. People go to sport all day Saturday. Sunday's the only day off. They don't think church is relevant. Like, life has changed, but church has not changed for a long time. So we started to do church together, and it worked, and it's the most connected I've felt to God for a long, long time, and I love it. It's like seeing the transformation in the lives of my friends is like getting a present from God every day. It's just so cool. So that's my story.
Hey, I got a question.
Yeah.
So you've seen some lives, like people follow Jesus. Well, what does community look like in that context? Like, how has it changed community? Like, how has God worked in that space?
I think that God is big in the small stuff, so I'm not going to say to you like the whole town is radically changed. That's not, it hasn't happened. But to see that a mother is reacting differently to her kids and is recognising that and is praising God for that, is impacting that family. And to see another woman who knows she's never alone, even though she's a single parent, and that's giving her comfort and confidence, and that's impacting her and her family. And like, it's early days, but lives are transformed. Like we talk about in the Salvation Army that hurt people. You heard that saying? But I think transformed people transform people. And that is what is happening, is starting to happen. And it's in the small things, but that's how we grow.
All right, I think we're done.
Thank you.
So if you got any questions, you can always leave them in the comments. Say, what do you reckon?
Yeah.
And I reckon
Powering down now.
powering down, and see you later. So yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for your
Thank you
time.
very much.